Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all and your little lovely avatars. I do like Gathertown. Super cool. It's much better than just doing a glorified Zoom call because we can walk into each other and through each other and stuff. So this talk originally I gave at B-Sides Newcastle on its first year when we were in a skate park in the dark, in the cold, and it rained in the building. And by the time it was time for me to present, I was wearing a ski jacket because it was that freezing. So thank you, Leeds, for being warmer and not having weather inside buildings that really shouldn't be inside buildings. During the talk, I'd like you to try and figure out what sort of agent I was. You could obviously cheat and just go straight to my LinkedIn and have a look. But let's pretend you haven't done that because you're great people and you don't cheat. No. Okie dokie. Right, a bit about me. I know some of you, I'm sure, that are in the Gathertown right now, but if we're not friends yet, now we are. I am head of, I'm going to say the M word, marketing and security strategy at Exabeam for EMEA currently. I've been doing this way too long, 23 years. So hopefully I've learned something along the way. During that time, I've had real jobs. I always say that I'm a sort of pretend marketer, but I've also been doing that for 7 years. So maybe I am a marketer, who knows? But I've worked in support. I've worked in incident response. I said sorry a lot when I was at McAfee. They didn't give me a business card that said Chief Apology Officer, but it felt like they really should have done. And I did product management there as well. I feel like I'm InfoSec mum sometimes, and I also have birthed some offsprings. So more about that later, actually, because it's kind of relevant to one of the bits. I play records. I even did some CDJs at Cyber House Party this week in London, which was the first time ever. And I played 80s music, which I think Mark Avery likes secretly, but maybe not. Who knows? I love a bit of old school malware. If you want to get down and dirty on some rootkits or any of that kind of cool stuff from years ago when the library of malware lived in a book, and I have the book in my downstairs toilet still at home. Bragging, undefeated 3 times, Bangface, air hockey, world's champion. If any of you have been to Bangface, you'll know that's quite a feat. Hate Liquoration, I love B-Sides, and you can find me on Twitter, so let's be friends. Alrighty, this is what I said we would talk about. Something about a redacted agency. We'll talk about transferable skills, which I think will be great for those of you who are kind of crossing into the industry or are panicking that you need to know how to code before you can do anything in cybersecurity, because that is bullshit. You don't need to be able to code. I haven't written a line of code since 2006. And the code that I did write then probably wasn't very good either. How to find opportunities, how to tackle imposter syndrome. As much as I can tell you, I still suffer with it a little bit, despite going on stage a lot and talking too much and waving my hands around in front, generally, of memes. Okay, this is not the agent that I was. Maybe it was. Who knows? No, that's not me. I was not a secret agent either, or was I? This could be a lie. Wasn't this sort of agent. Would have been kind of cool. Not that agent. Also was not an estate agent. So that's good, I think. I think you'll appreciate that there are no estate agents living inside me that I'm aware of. I don't know why this is in the slide deck. It was there from last time. I left it in, but still big bag of notes. I'm not Prince Andrew, thankfully. And everything really is down to John McAfee. I wouldn't be talking to you now if it wasn't for John McAfee. And I do have a slightly weird obsession with him. But I started my career at McAfee because of the agency that I worked with previously. And I do have a blanket just over my shoulder with John McAfee on it. So if you want to talk to John McAfee, let's do that tomorrow or indeed later in Gathertown. Moving on quickly. This is where my world started. If you know what these are, your back hurts. I guarantee that. My nan decided that a Spectrum might be a good idea when I was about 4. So the box turned up and the box stayed in the room for a little bit because I was 4. But it wasn't too long until it came out the box and we started playing with it and loaded games on tapes. And then my lovely mother decided that there might be something in this computer thing after all, and decided to bring a BBC Master into the house because she worked at a disc copying company way back in the 1980 something. And then when I went to school, we had one at school as well. It was very cool. But the headmaster decided that I was a liar when I told him that I had one of those things that he would wheel round on a trolley, because he was the only person allowed to wheel the trolley. And he rang my mum and said, Sam's a liar. She doesn't have a computer. And my mum went, wrong. She does have a computer. In fact, she's got a double disk drive. So go away, man with one disk drive. So that's how it started. I have no degree. I have no qualifications outside of stuff that I've picked up as I've gone through InfoSec. I don't have a CISP. There's plenty of things I don't have, but I did have a very curious interest in these things, and indeed things that have evolved from this. And that really is kind of how I got here, with also a bit of blagging, probably the agency, which is very, very important, and just loving computers because they don't lie. Really, I like the fact that they think fairly logically, and straight lines is good, and you can have a lot of fun with them and do cool things. But I wanted to be initially Kate Adie. So again, if you know who Kate Adie is, your back hurts. Kate Adie was a war correspondent in the 80s. In fact, she went to Tiananmen Square and stood there, and in fact was shot in Tiananmen Square, only a little bit. I know being a little bit shot sounds strange. But she was grazed by a bullet in Tiananmen Square. And the rule was, if Kate Adie turned up in a war zone, you knew it was bad. And I thought that would be a great career. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that, and no one's shot me today. So that's good. Yet, anyway. I'm in Leeds, who knows? Could be worse, could be Manchester. Sorry, Manchester people. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to go out and highlight truths and really kind of get the news to people as to what was happening in the world when things went bad. So if you squint, you can kind of draw a little line there. But the point here really is, and I think this stands very much for cybersecurity, you might start off thinking you want to do one thing, and your career can end up going all over the place. It really can, and things will pop up as you go. If someone, if you think, I want to go work in cybersecurity, but I don't really know where I want to go, first of all, there are some great people who've been doing this a short amount of time, a medium amount of time, and probably way too long, and have painful backs, that will be able to point you in the right direction. And at least give you ideas about what you might want to do. And even if you do that for a bit, you don't have to stick to it. That's the beauty of this industry, is there are so many ways you can go, and not all of them have to involve tanks. So that's good. All right, let's go back in time. I told you I liked old school malware. When I was at Redacted agency, there was this company called McAfee that I worked with, and there was a bit of a big virus outbreak that went on called Melissa that was rather exciting, and it sent a lot of emails out. Mass mailers were definitely the virus du jour, I guess, the zeitgeist indeed of the very, very late 90s. Mass mailers were a thing, very much so. And they would go through the address book. They'd send out lots of things. Sometimes it would be something exciting, like a bit of porn. Sometimes it would just be copies of itself to try and spread more. Sometimes with a payload. Sometimes it was just making a noise and was trying to make email servers fall over. Lots of different ones. Melissa hit whilst I was at said travel agency, and it was, there we go, very difficult to get through on the phone. So this is the things that people didn't know they needed at the time that McAfee sold. So antivirus, that sounded like fun. People would tell us that they didn't need it because they didn't have viruses. We used to sell something that was ultimately a hacker in a box at that time. Nobody knew they needed it. This thing could do a very rudimentary automated pen test. And it was pretty cool. But what was a pen test? No one knew that. We did encryption. That was free, so you could steal it. No one knew they needed that. And then we had this brilliant thing called Sniffer, which had nothing to do with dogs or drugs, that would actually go and look at your network, and it would be able to sniff what was going on the network and send back loads of call reports. Horrible UIs. Things came in boxes, and often with disks that you would have to put into a drive. So again, if you know what that is, sorry about your back. I went to support. Support was really cool. You'll find many people, I think, in cybersecurity who have had some sort of background in a help desk. Maybe in an agency at a help desk, who knows? Tech support is a good way to kind of get your chops sorted out. You learn a lot of skills in support. You learn how to deal with angry people. I'm sure all of you have phoned a support desk or messaged them, because who phones people anymore? And, you're having a bad day, your computer's being a prick, and you're raging. please be nice to support people because they are there to help you, and it's generally not their fault, but it's very easy to get rage at them. And log files do take a little bit of reading sometimes. So, patience is good. That said, I hate bad customer service. So that's when I will get really cross. But yeah, 8 years in support. At a time when being a woman in support was very, very strange. There were some of us, we had 4 in our support team, which actually was quite high, out of a team of maybe 40. For those of you who know Rick Ferguson, Rick and I used to work in support together way back in the day when he had short hair. He didn't have short hair. He looked exactly the way he does now. The man has not aged. But very often I would get people saying, hello, would you put me through to support, please? And they'd be very surprised that I was a support person because of the toilet that I use. So there we go. This is what the world looked like in those days. Our boss would run around and put in front of us a piece of paper that said, this is today's virus outbreak. This is what you're dealing with. We even had to fax, and this is not even made up. You know what a fax is? Your back will hurt soon. We had to fax sometimes the code over for people to handwrite their own update files from the numbers that were on that fax because they were completely down to the outside world. And that was a world. It was fun. Happy days. But we tiered support at that point, and we had people who were product people, very good at working on product problems. And we had also people then working on virus outbreaks who also did products. Not everybody is of that mindset. Dealing with virus outbreaks or indeed breaches or incidents is a different mindset to potentially being support for a product. And also we had terrible management, and we had something called the Tier 2 circus, which was every time they came back through to see us, they would say, can you just get back on the phones, please, because we can't deal with stuff. And we would play this, which is lovely. Please work, Sam. Have a moment. So there we go. That was what working in Tier 2 was like. It was a circus. Lots of coming in on weekends. What are weekends? Who knows what they are? But nonetheless, I find support people, until they get too jaded, are generally good people who want to help. So it is a good route in. I've been in vendor land for my entire cybersecurity career, pretty much. So vendor is an option. Vendor also pays quite well. Just a secret there. So they can be a good place to go. The vendor thing can be a bit plus and minuses. Some people hate vendors. There are some bad vendors out there. I'm not going to lie. Exabeam are not one of those. I love Exabeam, but it can be a good route in, as well as going to do cybersecurity for the reals at just a normal organization that's not a vendor. Vendors also need cybersecurity people too to run their own cybersecurity. That is a thing that gets missed quite often in the thought process. So I'm a big proponent of vendor land. If you do a support type role and you're expecting a Monday to Friday 9 to 5, that's interesting. But good places will always make sure you get your time back. So make sure that they do. We lived in a world that then evolved into, this is kind of the precursor for ransomware. It was a fake AV. It looked like it was antivirus software. These things were popping up all the time. And I went over to McAfee Labs and said, look, we've got this. This is basically an outbreak scenario. This stuff is everywhere. And they said, no. Outbreaks all have the same MD5s. So they all have the same hash. The files they drop all look the same. These things are server-side polymorphic. So they are changing the types of files that are being dropped across machines. It's not an outbreak. These are all individual infections. Sorry about that. We can't call outbreak. So I stood there and shouted at people for quite a long time until they listened. But this was before ransomware. Pain in the ass, would pop up on your machine, would lock your machine pretty much from being able to do anything until you paid money, and it was money then, not Bitcoin, for someone to fix it. They'd have a customer service number, you'd ring up with your credit card, and they would unlock your fake AV so that you could go back to your computer working again. Lovely side story from this was a lady that I spoke to when I was in support, who had run a company, weirdly in South Africa, was where the customer service for the fake AV vendors for this one was based. And she didn't have a credit card. So the command very kindly said, look, you've tried at least, you phoned up. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Here's the key to unlock it. Sorry about the fact you can't pay us any money. So not all cyber criminals are horrible. Just some of them are. Probably most of them. Okay. Shit got very real. Not going to lie. When you're working in incident response, if that's a route that you choose to go down, there is a huge knock-on effect. Quite a lot. It's not just, depending on the organisation you work for. If you work for an agency that does that, then you'll find out very quickly that business impact isn't always just people can't get to computers. It can be people can't get to computers, and then what can't they do? The biggest one I ever worked on was the biggest one I ever worked on was Aramco. That was pretty catastrophic. But on the support end of things at this point, I worked on an outbreak of pink slip bots, which went across 5 hospitals in the Netherlands, and they had people they were going to have to move out of intensive care. So if you ever think about what's the benefit of working in cybersecurity, the work that you do and the impact that you can have can literally mean life or death for people. So serious moment there, despite the meme. It's not just a case of fixing code or getting computers back up again. That knock-on effect can be absolutely vast. And when you get people through the other side, they didn't have to move people from intensive care in the end. We didn't, to my knowledge, I think the whole hospital managed to continue functioning, but only just. But we did get them back to normal, and that was a very, very rewarding moment. This thing popped up quite a lot. Good old Sality. This was a file infector. You used to see this in banks quite a lot. In fact, it's probably still out there, I think, somewhere. Often you'll find in support roles when you're trying to ask people, tell people what to do. Sometimes they don't really want to listen to you because you're just support. They want to talk to the vendor. Skip through that. Hang on. Let's not skip through that because conflict is important. This was another one we saw a lot of. Do you know how many XP boxes I found on Showdown this morning? 110. Very quickly, without doing any real effort, 110 XP boxes sitting there, all waving their asses about in the breeze. Config was another thing that was very, very rife in these times, and actually was a good way for people to get budget. For those of you who want to move to the heady heights of CISO, those kind of roles, budgetary authority, you'll find that a decent infection or a decent breach that actually shows people the value of what you do is a great way to get budget. Because if you're being thought of as a cost center, which often cybersecurity is, really badly misinformed boards or C-suite people who think that cybersecurity is just a nice to have or a thing you can do cheaply. Once you've been hit with something, which is not a nice experience, I promise you, generally in the aftermath, you'll find people actually want to give you money to be less bad at stuff. So that's a plus. Look forward to that. Please don't have XP boxes on your network. I put this on Twitter earlier, and somebody was talking about the fact that they had been asked to support Windows 98 boxes in a recent RFP. So there we go. Now, some things will never die. This happened a lot. Being in support, people wouldn't listen to me. Then I went to McAfee Labs, and they would, even though I was the same person telling them the same things. But job titles, weirdly, do sometimes matter, not always. But there was a lot of this. Sometimes it was dealing with bad misconfigurations. Sometimes it was waving my hands around being Gandalf in the middle of very, very exciting wars. And then a lot of times it was saying sorry for something that somebody else had done that wasn't my fault. But I'm good at that. So sorry about anything that you've ever done. I can do that for you. Incident response is a lot of fun. If that's a route you want to go down, let's talk about that because it is a ton of fun. You have to like coffee / caffeine / don't like hardcore drugs. You'll be really bad at it. But definitely sleep is a lovely luxury. You do it when you can. Product management is another place you can go to in cybersecurity. This was a place I went to because I'd had enough of doing incident response and being tired. Again, it gives you, it's very rewarding because you can start to build things that people need to be better at cybersecurity. Hopefully, if you work for a good place, and if you spend a lot of time talking to customers about what they want. I had one project that was so bad. It was an engineering-led thing that was done in good faith, but was very badly executed. That when I turned up, I lost my shit completely with McAfee at that point. Not John; he wasn't there anymore. But it hit the point that I actually decided that childbirth was a better option. So we released the product the right way 3 days before I gave birth to Trinity. So that was a lovely moment in time. Product management can be really cool. And again, it's one of those roles that you can do without knowing how to code, without needing to know how to code. There's a lot of people skills involved in this, as well as understanding how technology works and how problems work. But I'd say product management can be a really good career path in cybersecurity, and one that isn't obviously thought about, especially when you first start out and everybody wants to be a pen tester, because pen testing is very cool. The cloud. Let's talk about the cloud. I'm a nephophile, which means I love the cloud. Nephophile, not necrophile. Know what you were thinking. So the cloud is, I mean, obviously now the cloud is everywhere. When I first did this talk 4 years ago, people were still spinning on the cloud and like, we don't really want to use that yet. If anything good came of a pandemic, I think organizations who were balking about using cloud have now realized that it's kind of needed and it's actually better in many cases. But we need good cloud security people. And a lot of them don't have 10 years experience because, you know, some things cloud driven haven't been around that long. But I think this is one of those places, a bit like automation engineers, a bit about automation security people, where there is going to be longevity for sure. If you can pick those skills up and you keep learning, great place to go. Product marketing is good if you like talking about stuff. I like talking about stuff. I went there for a rest after engineering replans forever. And it's not terrible being a marketing person, especially if you've got a security background. We beat up on cybersecurity marketers a lot, I think. But cybersecurity marketers can be good people too. And if you've got a security background and you can take that into a marketing organization and stop people from saying stupid things about products, that in itself is very, very rewarding. I work with some great people who've had jobs in security operations centers and have now come to marketing. And actually, there are marketing roles within organizations for cybersecurity teams who deal with comms, who actually market the value of cybersecurity out to the business. And this is a great way of really getting support for what you do and also getting budget and keeping budget and getting people and not just being seen as this scary little cost center in the corner where people growl and say no a lot. So don't dismiss the marketings, just dismiss the bad marketings. Good time. Be good. Cool. All right, that's nice, Sam. We talked about what you did. What does this mean? Curiosity. That is one of my best things. I think if you're looking at what sort of skills do you have, what sort of transferable skills do you have? These are all things that are great for incident response, that can be great actually for product management, that can be great for working in support, that can be great for being pen testers, that can be great for a ton of stuff across cybersecurity. Memes are vital. If you can't do memes, you have to leave now. That's not true, but I will judge you. But there are lots and lots of different skills that you can have. If you're working in, I've had people come across from teaching that I've seen that done a great job. I've seen people, there was one guy I was chatting to the other day who was a gardener and came across into cybersecurity. There are lots of things you learn along the way. Working behind a bar will help you a lot in cybersecurity. And certainly like the technical stuff in support, great, all of that, help desk, working in more kind of tech roles, all good. But there are lots of things that you can do and that you can market about yourself that have stuff all to do with code. Getting opportunities. I just caught the end of Michael's talk, which I thought was great. It is sitting there waiting for something to fall in your lap is not a good way to get yourself forward. I think that sounds very obvious now I'm saying it out loud, but there have definitely been promises made by bad training companies that you'll just fall into a job because you've got a CISP and come up with your piece of paper here, especially if they're not really invested in helping you with your CV, helping you, make connections. Things like coming to B-sides are really, really good for networking. I've had a bunch of my different roles through networking, and networking can be a bit scary. When you say it's networking, it seems like it's this really big formal process where you have to or march up to people and be like, have your little pitch ready as to who you are. Making friends with people, it doesn't have to be about cybersecurity. You can go up to someone and go, hey, cool t-shirt. I like that. It might be a cybersecurity t-shirt, but making friends with people at the social side of like the things that we do. B-sides are great for that. Cyber house parties are great for that. There are a ton of places. The DC groups, they're all good. Twitter, I have made a bunch of friends through Twitter that have then worked into real life, and it turns out they're quite nice in person as well. Probably nicer than I am. So creating them through connections is a really good way to go about stuff. And if you think, oh God, I'm terrified of actually walking up to humans, start online, Discord, Twitter. Doing this is really, really good. You've made a great step by showing up today. Luck is a construct. I really think that. You might feel differently. That's up to you. It's all good. But opportunity is not going to just jump in your lap without a reason. So give it a reason to find you. Ask people. This is a thing I think we can be quite bad at. I go and talk to folks who've been doing that role. Most people, pretty much all people, are good and they want to help you. There are very few assholes in the world, and they get found out very quickly. Ask them how they got there. Ask them what they did. Ask them what they should do. And your niches, and that could be gender, that could be neurodiversity, that could be something in your background that is just so different. Like you've worked for estate agents, like I have. Oh no, it wasn't estate agents. You could be Prince Andrew. Don't be Prince Andrew. Let's just move on from that. Your personal niches can be really super special in how you get through and how you find opportunity. Having other stuff to talk about other than cybersecurity is super cool. Like other things exist. And I would very much recommend two things. We talked about mentoring. I know that was in the previous talk. It comes up a lot. Mentoring is fantastic. Sponsors are very, very awesome. So once you get into an organization, getting a sponsor, generally it will be somebody in your organization that you know, and it has to be somebody that you know. A sponsor that can help market you on behalf of you is super powerful. That can get you onto projects, that can get you put forward for different things, that can get you put onto teams for certain efforts. Sponsors are awesome. So it takes it beyond mentoring. Mentoring, I think, is there as a very personal relationship that can help you grow. It can be somebody inside or outside your organization. Sponsors tend to be more inside, not always. There's a whole conversation we have about sponsors that is completely separate to this. Imposter syndrome. We've got 3 minutes, and I'm going to go through this quick because, believe me, I still feel this, and rightly so, because there's part of me is a perfectionist and I want to know everything. You don't have to know everything in cybersecurity. You can't know everything in cybersecurity. If you want to go and do talks like this, please don't do slides like that. That will help you. But I can tell you, as an imposter, I have spoken to a room with that many people in it. I've spoken to a room here that is just me in it. Actually, there was 1,000 people the other side of the camera. And I spoke at InfoSec Europe this week. I still get the fear every time I do this. And it's okay. The fear is excitement in a new dress. There are things that only you know that you can talk about. There are things that a bunch of people know that you can go and talk about. But I promise you, there will be something you can bring to the table, be it doing a talk, be it an interaction in a bar with somebody. There's always something cool that you know that you can talk about. So imposter syndrome, it's there. It's a thing. Don't make it destroy your life. Really don't. It goes back to owning your niches, I talked about earlier. And if you're starting to put through talks for things, know that you will get your submissions denied. This happens to me still now very regularly. Let it help you learn. The great people you can go and talk to about ensuring things like CFPs or call for workshops are written in a way that maybe will be slightly better. Those of you who know James Ball, he is a lifeline for goodness. He will absolutely give you some tips. He's got some great stuff on his blog. There's more than just James Ball out there, but I love him. So we're just going to talk about how great he is for the next 3 seconds. All right. It's reveal time. Are you ready to find out what sort of agent Sam was? I may have mentioned it. Here are some means. The best way to get into cybersecurity, bar none, is to be a travel agent. Good. So if you could all just go and train to be travel agents, that would be great. I did it because I needed a job and I'd walked out of school